what I'm just saying is, right, if you're going to have an entire deck that's flooded, right, I should be allowed to use that as a swimming pool.
I think
right, because it doesn't feel the same in the holodeck. And if somebody turns off the holodeck and I'll fall out of it onto the ground, that's ruined my day.
my question would be one though of cultural appropriation. Is it okay for us to describe just a bunch of water just lying around as a swimming pool, or do you think Cetacean Ops will? Hold on a minute.
Oh,
Does it suddenly feel more evil in here?
I don't know. I've suddenly got the feeling that I'm avoiding doing completely different work to what I was 5 minutes ago.
Has O'Brien's private keg of Guinness just suddenly disappeared?
Where'd you get that belt? Podcasts. A Frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast Captain Slug. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new episodes, to seek out new jokes and new references, to split infinitives that no one has split before. Captain Slug, Stardate 62. These are the continued voyages of Mark and Eddie as we go through all of Star Trek. Mark, how you been? How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. I got house insurance today.
Oh, nice.
That's an adult thing that I've done recently. Really makes you question really what it's all worth, doesn't it? Quite literally. Turns out, pretty much what I was expecting. Yeah, but we're doing life insurance soon.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be a heavy day.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I had to do that so that they make you when you get a mortgage, they're like, oh, you should take out life insurance to do this. So that was a fun conversation with our mortgage broker, because obviously you go through. It was going, oh, I can get you signed up for the life insurance at the time. So he goes, well, we'll start with Emma, and Emma has to go. So I've had a brain tumor that was quite severe several years ago, and like the guy's like, oh yeah, that's no problem, that's fine. And then I go, right, I have 2 brain tumors now. And basically the insurance went, well, best of luck to you. We're not touching that with a fucking stick.
Some planet, innit? How you doing?
Fortunately, I'm good. I'm pretty good. I've got to say, I've much like you, Mark, I watched a bit of the coronation. We live in a deeply weird country.
I just got so annoyed because I didn't watch it for fun. My brother came round and we stuck it on just to see some of the train wreck, and we managed to come in just at the right time, because it was when they put the shields up around the throne.
The box around him, yeah,
so that no one could see what was going on. And I'm like, hold on a minute, I'm paying for this. What extra subscription service do I need to give to get eyes on what's happening in there?
Yeah, what is happening in there? That's the question I've got.
Yeah, because I think it's got something to do with him being naked, I guess.
Do they? Is it like with the Pope, where they have to put them on a stool with a hole in the bottom and check they've got testicles, because that one time a lady tricked their way into becoming Pope, or something like that? I can't remember the exact details.
I mean, I assume that if that wasn't a policy before, the current Tory government have installed it. They drill a big hole out of the Stone of Destiny, which is a thing that's underneath the chair that he's sitting on, and install a CCTV camera that points up.
Now, this I need to ask you about, because you're Scottish, so you'll know.
Yeah.
So the Stone of Destiny, otherwise known as the Stone of Scone, gets
They stay in a schoon.
Right, okay. And it gets brought down. What? It's kept like in a magic cave or something?
So from what I understand, it was stolen by the English, as you can probably imagine. It then
Doesn't sound like us.
I know, right? And then after I don't know this. I'm just this is things I've put together from Reddit comments. But I think that it was stolen, and then it was used in every coronation. And then after the Union, the Treaty of Union, it became like an official thing, because you're becoming the king or the queen of Scotland and England.
Yeah.
And then in the 70s, maybe the 60s or the 70s, a bunch of Scottish nationalists tried to steal it back and didn't succeed.
Right.
This, I believe, was also the plot of an episode of Highlander the series.
It's also significantly the plot of the Terry Pratchett novel Thud.
Yeah. And then in the 90s, they just gave it back to us.
Right.
So it lives in Scotland, but it travels down for coronations, which, given the evidence of our own eyes, means that they might as well just keep it down there for now.
But so it's
Like if we were given the option in Scotland, they're like, look, either we can all collectively pay for it to come back on the train, or we just leave it, and it means that we don't have to pay for another train journey in 18 months.
I mean, it is, when all said and done, just a rock. If you didn't watch the coronation, it was basically like a Monty Python sketch.
Yeah.
Like Penny Mordaunt had a blade, so it was literally strange women distributing swords is no basis for a system of government.
Kind of, yeah, because there was a lot of swords involved.
What was the little stick that he had that had a seagull on the end? Is he the king of the seagulls now?
Oh, I don't know. I've no idea. I had to speak to a lot of Americans about this over the last couple of weeks. And many of them were like, oh, we're coming over to London, like, should we just avoid it that week? I'm like,
yeah.
Well, I said, but the thing is, right, Saturday's going to be mental because of all the lunatics. But other than that, you are about to get a crash course in unenthusiasm.
I was out for a friend's birthday. That's the other day, and I was deliberately ushering us towards the pubs that had the least, what I considered the minimal viable level of bunting. Like, if you're a pub, you have to put a bit of bunting up because it's the coronation. But I saw a place that had like one strand, very sadly, over the door, and I was like, that's where we're drinking.
We Celtic won the league yesterday. And if you're not aware of the sectarian divide that carves basically straight down the middle of Glasgow, Celtic are the Irish Republican team, for lack of a better way to put it. So yeah, it was quite a weekend up here. Bunch of people on Saturday feeling very happy about something, and then Sunday feeling very not happy about something else, which is classic Protestant behaviour.
This weekend has had something for everyone. Because if you're not a fan of that, the Tories lost 1,083 seats at like an election, which is, if you don't like the monarchy, that's good news to you in general.
Yeah, it was good times.
Yeah. Anyway, Star Trek.
What a great episode this was.
We watched an episode this week entitled "We're Sorry, Denise." No, I have stopped looking ahead at what the episodes are going to be, and I sat down like literally earlier about 2 hours ago to watch this because I leave things to the last minute, and it came up that it was yesterday's Enterprise, and my exact response was, "Oh fuck yeah,
great." Yeah.
This is a fucking brilliant episode."
With,
if you don't know,
four credited writers.
Really?
And 2 credited story buys.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
This should be a mess.
Yeah.
And it's not. And that's so. The plot is there's a weird thing in space, and it turns out it's the Enterprise C, and it's been flung forward in time 20 years, and as a result, the timeline has now changed, and the Starfleet is at war with the Klingon Empire, and like billions of people have died.
Yeah.
And they basically have to decide whether to send the Enterprise C back to basically go on a suicide mission, but in doing so, probably like change the course of history, so the war never happens.
Yeah, it's Laura and I just watched. We've been revisiting The Good Place.
Oh,
She's revisiting it. I'm visiting it for the first time.
How far into The Good Place are you?
We're about halfway, or we're a little chunk into season 2. I have.
So you know the twist.
Yes, I have a weird history with The Good Place.
Right.
The Good Place is one of these shows that people who know me really well in the past have said it's like someone made a show specifically for you. And I kind of get that. Like I like ethics. I love kind of interesting questions and sort of the nihilistic view of like, does ethics work in a universe where people exist, which really is as far as I can tell the theme of The Good Place. But there's something about, I've tried it like 3 times and we always get to episode 3 and I'm like, I'm out, and I don't know what it is about that episode that specifically that I don't like, but there's something in that episode that always tells me this is going nowhere. Even though I know it goes somewhere. It's really weird. But sorted on. And this week today we watched the trolley problem episode.
It's a great one.
Chidi's trying to teach Michael about the trolley problem, and Michael is kind of like, well, the thing about the trolley problem is that it's theoretical. There's no stakes, so we're gonna just do it for real. And this episode of Star Trek is just the trolley problem writ large.
Yes, it is. And equally, I fully get what you're saying with The Good Place, because season 1 of The Good Place has one of the strongest setups I've ever seen from a sitcom, and one of the strongest payoffs I've ever seen from a sitcom, and the rest of the series is there. But you need it to appreciate what the show does.
Yeah.
In like from then on. So if you like, I know when it comes to TV recommendations, people always hate. It's like, oh, it doesn't even get good till season 4. No, just watch The Good Place. There are only 4 seasons. It is 100% worth your time.
Speaking about other TV shows doing well, have you been keeping up with Barry?
I haven't. I need to watch Barry. I've been told it's great.
So there's 4 episodes to go, and then it's done. And if the writers strike, obviously solidarity with the WGA. If the writers strike doesn't affect it, which really it shouldn't, they should have at least done the production by now. This Barry, I think, could be shaping up to be a more satisfying full run than Breaking Bad. Because Breaking Bad is like sit down with a serious Breaking Bad fan and they'll be like, it is perfect television until they basically ended it at the end of season 4 and then have season 5 to wrap things up. Barry isn't doing that. Barry looks like it's skipping that part. And it looks like it's all just going to end basically terribly for everyone involved, which, what else can you do? There's no jokes in it anymore. It's not a comedy anymore.
What is it about
captivating television?
What is it about recently TV shows starting as a comedy and then like just going, actually, like season, like for example, the Orville season 3, actually, let's just be really high concept fucking next generation fan fiction.
Yeah, well, I guess there is that thing of like if you want a really good serious actor, find a comedian. Comedy actors are amazing at doing really serious stuff. But with Barry, it's like Bill Hader had this idea in his head of this really serious, old school French cinema TV show that he wanted to make, but just because he's Bill Hader, he has to put jokes in it. So over the years of Barry, like, the jokes have been getting less and less and less. That last episode was harrowing, harrowing television. Yeah, you're right. It, like, the Orville. As soon as the Orville changed channel and they asked him, Seth, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to make a 70-minute treatise on the guilt that comes from suicidal feelings. Oh, that sounds funny. What are the jokes? There are no jokes.
I don't think I pushed the metaphor for trans rights as far as I could do it, so I want to do an episode in which a child gets beaten. Just to really hammer home the point. Also, Dolly Parton's going to be in it. That's a holdover, but it works.
So I'm reading the making of yesterday's Enterprise here, and it's actually kind of interesting. So this is like a beloved episode. Like this is an episode that people will go back to the point where it seems that there is a book chronicling the making of just this episode.
Right.
It was originally a spec script. Which, if you don't know how television works, basically, if you want to be a writer in television, certainly back in the network days, you would provide spec scripts of other shows, right? You would never, ever, ever put in a script for the show that you want to work on, because then the problem of, well, who came up with this idea? Did we pay them? Etc.
Yeah, they're not, legally speaking, networks don't even open a spec script that's for, like, they will not read it, so that they can legitimately then say, if an episode they do happens to have something in common with something you wrote, we never read that.
Yeah, so, for example, we for some reason the internet has decided to become obsessed with Donald Glover's hiring on 30 Rock recently.
Oh, right.
Because I guess there hasn't been enough news in the world. So
everything's fine.
All of the online rags have been trying to... basically a situation that any 30 Rock or any comedy fan was already aware of, and twist it into making Tina Fey sound like the bad guy. Because Tina Fey told Donald Glover he was a diversity hire, which is objectively true, but you're kind of missing out the key points of the story. Which is that back in when they were making 30 Rock, they were given like a fund that didn't come out of their budget to bring in diverse writers. Donald Glover, who was like 24 at the time, which is sickening, or maybe even younger, wrote a spec script for an episode of The Simpsons that is... I remember reading from someone saying, like, this is the best episode of The Simpsons no one will ever see. And from that he got hired on 30 Rock because Tina was like, well, I can bring on this incredible writer and it won't affect her budget. So of course I'm going to tell him, because he'll think that's funny. Which he does. Like, Donald Glover will open up to it. He'll be like, yeah, I got hired as a diversity, but also I got hired on 30 Rock.
Yeah. It's like, you're trying to make Tina Fey the bad guy in that for giving Donald Glover a job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for potentially giving us Community's greatest asset.
And it, like, if nothing else, it gave us This Is America happened as a song. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But this one in particular, it seems like it had a really long history, because it was submitted as a spec script. It was then read by a few of the producers, who were also like, oh, this is pretty good. Michael Piller then requested a deal to purchase the story, which is why there's a story by.
Right, okay.
And then I guess it went to 4 other writers up until Ronald D. Moore, who obviously wrote the best version. Yeah, there's like I guess the Writers Guild of America objected to the 2 guys receiving a story by credit. It looks like there was a lot of controversy, but unfortunately we didn't do a lot of research on this episode, so if you know what those things were about, congratulations.
Yeah. My biggest question is, I want to know at what point was the decision made to essentially make this a Tasha Yar episode, and like have to phone Denise Crosby and like going, that Star Trek show, it's good now.
Yeah.
Don't you feel silly for leaving? Would you like to come back on board for one episode? And I feel like this episode, at some point in the writing process, somebody who felt bad for how both Denise Crosby, the actress, was treated because she decided she didn't want to be in Star Trek, which based on Star Trek season 1 is fair.
Yeah.
Right? And then she made that decision, decides to leave. Not only did they do the actress dirty, but they also didn't come up with anything particularly satisfying for the character. Like in this very episode, Guinan says, what was it? It was an empty, pointless death.
Yeah.
Which, is a great thing to say to somebody who's dealing with the fact that the timeline's about to be reset and they are going to be dead. Is just to go, oh, don't worry though, your death was utterly pointless.
Yep. I guess like because if you're Denise Crosby, and I can't remember, but I feel like Denise Crosby falls into the annoyingly recurring category of female cast member who basically took the job on Star Trek because she herself loves Star Trek and then was so beaten down by Rick Berman's behaviour that she vowed to never, ever even like the series again, which, from what I understand, is the experience of more than one person.
Yeah, because the thing is as well, like, Gates McFadden left as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. She left, and they didn't do this to her character. They didn't casually murder Bev.
No.
And then have Orphan Wesley hanging around like the ghost at the feast.
Yeah, it's but it is kind of that, like there is a satisfaction to that though, of Guinan, especially. I think Whoopi Goldberg was the correct choice to have Tasha speak to, because they didn't know each other. Guinan came on the ship after Tasha Yar died,
yeah,
which we kind of approached in the episode. But having Guinan be the one, Whoopi Goldberg, like, from what I understand, when Whoopi Goldberg requested to be on Star Trek, they didn't believe her. Because she was huge. She'd just done The Colour Purple, she'd just won an Oscar, and she had to get LeVar Burton to convince the producers that she wasn't taking the piss.
Yeah, she only wanted a bit part as well. She would happy to be a one-off recurring alien, and they just went, well, if you want to be in it, we could make you the barman as a recurring character.
Yeah.
Because the story basically goes that Whoopi Goldberg basically says the reason she's an actor is Nichelle Nichols. Like, seeing Nichelle Nichols on Star Trek. Basically, what Martin Luther King said to Nichelle Nichols about why she couldn't quit Star Trek was true, which was, seeing you on the screen is incredibly important to our people. That was what he basically said to her. And Whoopi Goldberg was sat at home watching Nichelle Nichols on Star Trek and going, oh, maybe I can be an actor.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so cool.
yeah, big time, yeah. And there is that kind of implication that, yes, Tasha Yar was killed off in an absolutely pointless way, but we've written this episode around a conceit where essentially, if Tasha Yar's sacrifice didn't happen, everything goes to shit. Now, obviously, that's not direct, because the events that the Enterprise see have to go back in time to re-engage with have nothing to do with her. I don't know if that character, the character was probably a child at the time, but it's making her the linchpin. Like, you have to go back in time and change something to make this show work, because Star Trek did, like, obviously indirectly got better after she left. So to give this implication that Starfleet itself is better if you go back and die and don't stay on. But if you have to stay off, that's kind of the best case scenario. I think.
Yeah, so I think just to like explain to anyone who hasn't seen it, basically what happens is because the timeline has altered, there are certain changes. First of all, everybody has a fancy belt, and the Enterprise is now a warship. They're at war with the Klingons, and as a result of that, Worf is not at tactical. Tasha is. And I will say the one problem with this episode is I feel they missed a trick in not having Worf be the captain of one of the Klingon vessels later.
I was certain that was going to happen because basically the conclusion of the ending of the episode happens with about 12 minutes to go, and then a Klingon warbird, bird of prey.
What is Romulan bird of prey, Klingon warbird? Because jeez, look, Star Trek writers of the past, the two biggest protagonists, like antagonists in the entirety of fucking thing, you couldn't have given them different sounding ship names.
I know, right?
Do you know what the Borg have? A cube. I don't get that confused with anything else.
No, it's a Borg cube. Yeah, it's so instantly recognisable. It's a big square in space.
But at least the Romulan warbird and the Klingon bird of prey, or whatever way around, at least they're completely different ships from each other. What's that? They both go invisible. Okay, right, fine. Fuck you then.
Yeah, that would have been great. Is this? I don't really know. I haven't really watched much further than this, or at least haven't come across it. But the Yesterday's Enterprise universe, like, it lives on, right? It kind of. Do we go back to that at some point, or is it important at some point?
So. It's important to assess here because I was certain in my head I've seen Worf like as a Klingon warrior in charge of a ship, but I don't think that's to do with this.
No,
this is to do with the fact that there is a mirror universe that you can get stuck in via a transporter accident. That is from it's where the it's from the original series, and it's where the evil Spock turns up with a goatee. And it's where the concept of the evil twin having a goatee, basically, in popular culture, comes from that episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that's completely separate to this. But, also, confusingly, I'm fairly certain there have been, like, novelizations of, like, Star Trek novelizations that have been written that are set in the Yesterday's Enterprise timeline.
Yeah.
But also, even more confusingly, Tasha doesn't die. She gets captured by the Romulans.
Right. Yeah.
And has a Romulan daughter who is also played by Denise Crosby.
That's right.
So yeah, there's a lot here to. Well, I did get a laugh out of one moment in this. The minute the timeline changed it, right, all of the lighting changed to this horrible universe where all of like the Star Fleet doesn't look like a nice place to be. It's all poorly lit. It's dark. There's like everybody's underlit by neon. It basically looked like new Star Trek.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, it's turned into Discovery. The worst possible outcome.
Yeah, that, like, as much as I love Picard season 3, like, make it a bit brighter, lads. Do you know what I mean?
My favourite moment in Picard season 3 is when they are back on the Enterprise D and they turn the lights on and they slowly come up, and I was so worried they were going to do we have limited power, the lights can only go to a certain level bullshit or something like that. But then the lights just went up to like being nice. Here's the thing: you can make Starfleet look cool with like bad lighting, but you also don't make it feel like it meets the health and safety regulations of an actual workplace.
Yeah.
But
unless everyone's carting about with one of those handheld torches.
Yeah,
I'm still furious about those. They're so impractical.
O'Brien Watch.
I have a question about this timeline that I don't think is established. I think is this an O'Brien-less timeline?
Do you know what? Laura brought that up. Yeah, she was like, O'Brien wouldn't serve on a warship.
Yes, he would. O'Brien fought in the Cardassian War. Yeah. But I reckon it's just that he's dead. He did so.
That'd be a bummer, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I'm glad that got fixed. we should mention who's in this episode as well. So the Enterprise C turns up. The captain Captain Garrett is played by Trisha O'Neill, who is a quintessential that lady actress. She is one of those ones. She's been in Murder, She Wrote 5 times as different characters.
Wowzer! Did she ever do the killing?
I don't know. I will report back if I see her in my watch through of Murder, She Wrote.
Nice.
I'm up to like season 5. And of course, Richard Castile is the. I don't know if he's the first officer because he's a lieutenant, but he's the.
It's got to be because he takes over after Garrett dies.
Yeah, but I think the actual first officer is already dead when the episode starts because they got dinged up. But yeah, it's Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore.
Who, bizarrely, especially after watching this episode, it's kind of confusing why was he never a leading man? He's handsome enough. He seems to be charismatic enough.
He's got that easy charm.
Obviously, he's funny, and that's why Shooter McGavin was a thing. But I've never seen him be a good guy. I don't think.
No, he's like. I'm not gonna say he's been typecast, but if I was making anything and I wanted, say, a douchebag lawyer,
oh yeah, 100%.
He's the actor I go for. Is it that he's too handsome? Is that the problem?
I feel like he looks like a character from like Boston Legal, with Shatner and James Spader. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like somebody who doesn't work at their law firm, but somebody who works at like another law firm that they regularly have a run-ins against.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see him being like a recurring antagonist in Ally McBeal.
but he's because again, I haven't really looked into this, so I don't know if you have any expertise on it. Why did they skip from Enterprise B to Enterprise D? Because I was trying to remember, because so it's the Enterprise obviously through the TOS, right? The 1701. And then when that gets destroyed in the voyage home, they rechristen it the Enterprise A, and then the Enterprise A lasts one film. And then it's the Enterprise B, right?
But so the B had already. Oh, had it already been used? I mainly think that the reason is they didn't want to rely on legacy characters, and the problem would be if you do the B, it's the ship immediately after.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
If you do that, then you have the problem that like, oh, we should be hearing from Admiral Kirk, like it's that thing. Whereas by shifting it enough into the future, because TNG does very minimal sort of fan service in that respect. There's Bones is in the very first episode. Obviously, Kirk is in the first movie. Yeah. And there is one episode where Scotty turns up, and for literally one episode. And I believe there's a 2-parter that Spock's in, but that was made specifically to promote the fact that the last original cast movie was being made.
That makes sense.
Was being released. So, I mean, when you consider how much fan service you tend to get in modern Star Trek, it's kind of ridiculous that that's all they did. I think they even like Voyager had some in Tuvok in Voyager originally served on his first job was on the ship that Sulu is captain of.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because he doesn't have the Vulcaneers, but they're basically like, it's him.
Yeah, so they retconned that in the in Voyager to make it he does have the point. That is Tuvok. So yeah, but yeah, this was a period of not really doing, like, when I say that Star Trek doesn't do a lot of fan service at this time period, Deep Space Nine doesn't have a Borg episode.
Yeah, that's really weird, isn't it? Yeah, because I guess what would it be? Because the Borg can't get to Deep Space Nine. Once that happens, it's game over.
Yeah,
it's like... I mean, yeah, you could have Miles O'Brien single-handedly defeats the Borg, but that would really take away from Janeway later. So,
And it's not as if you could do some sort of storyline in which the shapeshifters and the Borg team up. That would be ludicrous. But yeah, no. It's weird that so I think that basically they didn't want to do the fan service, so they jumped. But I don't know how they decided on Enterprise D. I mean, maybe I just genuinely think they might have gone B's too soon.
Yeah.
Maybe C is also too soon, and then they went, okay, D's far enough that maybe his way, but also early enough in the alphabet that if this is successful, we can keep making Enterprises.
Yeah, because the timeline's really weird because they say that like because in the Prime timeline, what do they think happened to the Enterprise C? Do they think it just disappeared?
In the main timeline, yeah. So in the main timeline, it goes down in history that it died trying to save this thing. So in this timeline, I don't know. They'd like, oh yeah, it just went missing. But so it's like Enterprise A gets destroyed in a Star Trek movie, doesn't it? Because it burns up in re-entry. The Enterprise B is the one that gets destroyed by the Nexus in. And that grabs Kirk, and that's all I know. So the C blows up here, the D gets crashed into a planet by Deanna Troi. God knows what happens with the E is around, but
so the E we know this. Something happened to the E involving Worf. That's all we know. Yeah,
that's all. The F is seen in Picard, and that is from there's a Star Trek online game that has the Enterprise F as a ship, and they basically copied that design across as like a bit of fan service to them.
Shelby gets killed immediately.
Yeah,
and
then the G is the current Enterprise,
and it's the Titan.
At the end of it's the Titan rechristened. Yeah, so. But I know that there's an Enterprise from the future that there's a lot of time travel bollocks in Voyager.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say this. The temporal time directive is a lot fucking clearer than the normal prime directive, which is don't fuck about with the past. Just don't.
It just the temporal prime directive just says don't. What's that? Leave it.
Don't unless you're Scotty and you need to buy some glass.
Yeah. I question how many buttons does it take to eject a warp core? Because it seems like that seems to be a solution to a lot of problems, and but I guess you wouldn't want anyone doing it accidentally. So what do you reckon is the procedure? Do you think it's a password situation?
I reckon it's the same as an auto destruct. You need two senior officers, to confer with each other.
Because I can't imagine it can take too long. I can't imagine it would even be like, can you get down here from the bridge? I imagine it has to be a thing that Scotty or Geordie can press 3 buttons, and it happens. Because also you don't, because you might have to eject the warp core for like survival reasons, like for we have to like in the Abrams one they do it so that it will blow them out of the path of the encroaching black hole or whatever. But in this case, Geordie's just like, this thing's leaking. Better get a shot at this.
Yeah, it's in this. He goes, we've got about 2 minutes before the warp core blows up, so they do it. But in general, you're not getting like a 20-minute warning that you need to eject the warp core unless you're stuck in a weird time dilation or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it needs to be. It shouldn't be a big red button that you can lean on.
Yeah.
But it should be a big red button with a little plastic cover.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
There's certain things that you can put all the computers you want, but there's certain things that should just be a switch.
Yeah, because it needs to be not so complicated that Geordie can't do it with just his hands. But it can't be so simple that a Borg can come on and pick a lock and then just press it.
Well, it's not even just Geordie can do it. It can't rely on just the scene. It has to be something that anyone can do.
Yeah.
Because if Geordie's asleep, you can't get him Oh, can you get to engineering? You've got 4 minutes. You've got a minute and a half to get here before we're all dead. Oh, well, my quarters are 2 minutes away.
Yeah. I'm closer to the holodeck. I'm going to see Leah Brahms. We got the first ever, I believe, the first ever shout out to Cetacean Ops in this episode.
Really? I didn't catch that. Where was
It's
that?
right. It's right at the beginning when Guinan is walking through 10 forward, and there's a call out on the PA system for someone to report to Cetacean Ops. Which I was like, the dolphins, excellent. Because I guess
also...
we never see them before Lower Decks, right? As far as I'm aware. And in Lower Decks, they make the genius decision to give them uniforms. So that's canon as far as I'm concerned. They are wearing uniforms.
Here's the thing, right? If you could make a whole thing about how Rolaren has to have a Bajoran earring, like, oh, it's a breach of uniform. It's like, it shows there is a set uniform that Starfleet have. It doesn't matter what species you are. That's what you get.
Yeah.
And like, I don't see why our flippant friends would be. It's the dumbest fucking thing that Star Trek accidentally confirmed that dolphins and whales are higher life forms.
Yeah.
And then did nothing with it.
I mean, it'd be expensive though, wouldn't it? Like, and what sort of power does Cetacean Ops have? Because I guess they breathe oxygen, right? So they'd have to come out of the water. So life support, but then life support could last longer for them because if they go up and take a breath and then go back under the water, I don't know. Dolphins, how long do they spend underwater? Like 30 minutes. So do you give them enough buttons? Like, what is their purpose? What is their purpose? Like if they're in a situation where it's like, right, okay, so everyone, I bet they have a slur for non-dolphins, air swimmers or something, right? And I bet they're like, all the air swimmers have all died. We've got 25 minutes worth of oxygen, and there's a starbase at warp 1 or warp, let's say 3. That's pretty safe. That's 15 minutes away. Do we care enough about Cetacean Ops to give them enough buttons to fly essentially a morgue ship to a starbase, get there, and then be like, we did it. We saved the Enterprise D. And they're like, well, everyone else is dead. And they're like, yeah, but we made it. The dolphins, the Cetacean Ops, we're here.
Well, you're assuming that the dolphins working on Cetacean Ops, like,
don't have their own agenda? Is that what you're suggesting?
What I'm suggesting is maybe they have like their own jobs and ranks. Maybe one of them just happens. You're on Cetacean Ops because that's where you live, but maybe you're like one of the guys who does the navigating.
What if it turns out as well that dolphins, like obviously when you go to SeaWorld and you see dolphins jumping through hoops and stuff, you're a bit like, that's just a shame. Those creatures are probably at least partly sentient and we're just doing this for our amusement. What if they really enjoy it? What if part of your job of being an air swimmer who works at Cetacean Ops is that occasionally you need to go in and hold a hoop out over the water for them to jump through for their own amusement, and at the end of it, you're probably the only one that they respect, right? Because like, think about how, because like it could be argued that humans have been massively oppressive to dolphins for centuries, right?
Look, I'm just gonna
say,
Mark,
if O'Brien is still angry about the way that the Brits treated Ireland, then all of Cetacean Ops absolutely have the right to be furious at every human being.
Look, on multiple occasions, I've suggested that for April Fools or something like that, we do an episode where we do an episode of Sequest DSV, right? So I'm more than willing to talk about dolphins a lot, because you could do that for ages in that, but I don't know what I just think, because the thing is, it's not just going to be dolphins. There must be intelligent life out in space that are part of the Federation that live aquatically. Like, well,
they now reckon, like real life science now reckons that octopuses, which I think is the correct way to do it, octopuses are in fact sentient.
Yeah, the problem is octopuses sacrifice their own life to bring their young into the world, so they can't have any established culture.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? Yeah.
So somebody needs to like tell them to stop doing that.
Yeah. That's what they need, is human beings coming in, opposing our values on them.
Well, not any human beings. I'm assuming these would be white people. What do you think of Captain Garrett in this episode? I'm a fan.
I am a fan. I feel like Captain Garrett, obviously we don't really get to see a lot of her, but there is the implication that you don't get to be captain of the Enterprise without a bit of something about you, right?
Yeah.
Like you're the captain of the flagship. Like you're on the third version of a ship that has saved the universe multiple times, as well as being the kind of figurehead of the exploratory arm of Starfleet, which is what their entire shtick is. So yeah, you have to be incredible. And again, I don't know this for a fact, but I bet there's like a run of novels about her.
Yeah.
I bet we know quite a lot about her in the Apocrypha.
I am a very big fan of her being basically told, oh right, so the timeline has changed. There's been a war and billions of people have died, but we think it's possible to avoid this if you go back through your time hole and all die. And she's like, well, okay, I'll do that then. Like, there's no dicking about. Like, there's certain captains we've met in Starfleet who might have had a thing or two to say about that. Shaw wouldn't have done it, and that's like to his credit. Like,
big time, yeah.
Yeah, but like the entire crew of the Enterprise C just go, no, yeah, we'll just all go die to stop there from being. Because it is they claim that because it was all, so there's been billions of people who've died, but Picard also tells Garrett is like, just to let you know, the war's actually going really badly. We're not publicly acknowledging it, but we've probably got about 6 months left before we become part of the Klingon Empire, which I do love. It's such a good episode though.
Yeah,
and the thing is that Guinan knows the timeline has changed, but she's not sure how, because in official Star Trek lore, Guinan is an Illyrian, and I believe the technical term, I'm not sure. Like I did some digging through the Wikipedias and stuff, and Illyrians are a bit weird.
Strange.
That is non-specifically weird and long-lived. That's
in the sort of weird, like the super apocrypha, like the Star Trek crossovers and stuff. Star Trek has crossed over several times with Doctor Who.
Okay.
And it will usually be the Next Gen crew and like one of the newer Doctors. But the Time Lords and the Illyrians, so they sort of are aware of each other's existence, even though they're from separate universes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like a thing of she has a sense of, essentially a sense of continuity.
Yeah, the Illyrians are referred to in some of the lore as the listeners, which is probably why they're like, she's a barmaid. And if you think about it, it's probably where the nature of their run-ins with Q sort of come in. Like, oh, Q's like, you can't really get away with being an unlimited super being who can change the universe if you do it. And the person you've done it to is like, change that back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What do you mean change it back? You shouldn't remember that I've done anything. It's like, well, yeah, but I do.
Yeah, I can see that you've done it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's. But I do kind of like that we never really get an explanation. I'm worried that there'll be a point in some of the new Treks where we'll get a fucking deep dive into the Illyrians, and it's just like, no. Like, there's loads of weird ancient species hanging around in the Star Trek universe, usually as a big space head. And we never get much info on any of them.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Because that's the point. That's why we're out there.
Yeah.
To seek out new life and new civilizations. We're not necessarily we don't need to understand everything, because if we understood everything, there'd be nothing to look for.
Yeah.
So if we get absolute deep dives into the mechanics of how everything works, it kind of makes it less magical, which to me is kind of weird, because I'm the guy who, like, I only fully appreciate a magic trick when I know how it's done.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't take away the magic for me. If anything, that adds to the magic of knowing, that's because I know that it's not real magic, so I know that this person has to have great skill to have done that, and how they did it is always very impressive and interesting. But with fiction, I'm just like, nope, leave some things as a mystery. There should always be mystery. If you explain everything, there's nothing left to talk about.
Yeah, I'm certain someone somewhere is working out exactly how that episode of Strange New Worlds, how killing a child could lead to a floating city. I'm absolutely certain someone is trying to work that out. But you know what? It doesn't actually matter for the point of the episode.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. If you're writing something as an allegory, rather than writing it so that everyone thinks you're the smartest woman in Scotland, then you don't have to fucking explain everything. And in fact, your world actually works better if you don't explain everything, because your explanations for things are garbage. But you don't let other people try and explain it, which is the real fucking issue.
Like, there is hard science fiction where everything is fucking explained, and that is The Expanse, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, nobody can travel faster than light, because the writer can't work out how we would travel faster than light, because no one does. If you knew how it was done, we'd do it, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So we just go, yeah, they have that. And yeah, keeping stuff like that vague, and it's just like, yeah, because how often does the timeline get changed? Admittedly, in Star Trek, a lot. But
Yeah.
there's a great series of episodes. This is something you will very rarely hear me say this sentence. There are a couple of great episodes of Star Trek Voyager. That's the bit you'll never hear me say that often. But it's like, there are a couple of great episodes that deal with like time travel, and they've got Red Foreman from that '70s show in them.
Yeah.
And they're absolutely great. Well, if we eventually get to Voyager, we'll get to them. But yeah, this is such a good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also Worf's first prune juice.
I take it that becomes a running feature.
That is Worf's go-to drink, because Worf holds himself to like the standards of Starfleet, which means unlike normal Klingons, he can't be fucking half cut out all the time. So he drinks that instead of blood wine.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
I really like as well that the Worf had nothing to do in this episode, so they because he wouldn't be there. So they gave him something that was quite interesting, like a nice little character building scenario.
And it also works because you're following the character of Worf.
Yeah.
Then the timeline changes and the camera pans over and he's not there and it's Tasha, and you go, oh, we're like, things have changed. Like, it's a really good way of doing it. And I will say that Worf at tactical just looks right.
Yeah.
It just looks better than, and that's not a knock on Denise Crosby, who is a fine actress, and I think if she'd stayed on board the show and had a chance to stretch her legs, we would have gotten some very interesting stuff with her.
Yeah.
But I also completely understand why she left the show. She wasn't on Star Trek The Next Generation. She was on Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1, which are two very different things.
Yeah, agreed. Didn't even really get a shout out in Picard Season 3. I think we've seen her once. We see a hologram of her in Data's mind.
Yeah, Data's memories,
which is enough.
Gives over to Lore. Is one of his core memories is that time he banged Tasha Yar.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just such a well written episode. It has like those moments, because I also like that not only does the Enterprise C get to sacrifice itself, everybody on the Enterprise D is fighting off the Klingons when they turn up, and they're pretty certain that if they're wrong about the timeline changing, they're gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
Like, Riker gets killed.
Well, Riker gets killed. Yeah, and what they're facing is I mean, I can't imagine this was unintentional, but they're basically facing the Kobayashi Maru because it's the three birds of prey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I would have changed about this episode. Two things I would have changed is, one, I would have had, they get like a like surrender and be prepared to be boarded, and Picard's like, never, has like his moment. I would have had that on screen, and I would have had that be Worf.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would have had the Enterprise D get blown up.
Oof.
Because the timeline resets the minute the Enterprise C has gone through the rift. So the Enterprise D can be back immediately.
Yeah.
So if you can, all I'm going to say is, if you have the opportunity to blow up the Enterprise and still have the Enterprise at the end of the episode, I'm of the opinion that you should always take that. Like,
or what they do, the old saucer separate.
Yeah.
And send the civilians off in the saucer, and then the Klingons blow up the saucer.
Oh, but there are no civilians on board the Enterprise D.
Oh no, you're right. No, yeah,
it's a warship, so maybe it can't even do that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, well, why would it need to? Yeah,
yeah. Why is Wesley there? That's my big question.
Why is he in a uniform?
I imagine that maybe he just like the story is that maybe he just went to try out for Starfleet a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Maybe the thing we didn't get mentioned in this was that in this timeline, his dad's alive.
Yeah.
Right, and instead we go to a different timeline where not only is Wesley's dad dead and Wesley off travelling the universe as some sort of weird higher being, he's not even any longer his mum's favourite son. Or in fact, anybody's favourite Crusher son. If your favourite Crusher son is still Wesley after watching Picard season 3 and not Jack Crusher, I don't know what you're looking for from television.
Yeah, what do you want? Yeah, exactly.
That man is so damn charismatic.
Yeah.
I would, like I've said before, happily watch a show where it's the new adventures of the Enterprise with him on board. He's great.
The only thing that I want, if they don't do the Enterprise G show with him on there as the left-hand man, is if he gets to be Bond.
Oh, he'd be a great Bond.
Yeah. Because I was trying to show him to my mum yesterday. We were talking about new Bond, and like Ed Speleers, apparently, and I'm saying this as a fucking troll, right? As an absolute chud of a man. But he tends to look really good on screen, but doesn't photograph very well.
Right. Okay.
So I was like, oh, look at this guy. My mum was like, oh, I don't know about that. I was like, no, if you watch Picard season 3, you'll see he's actually super suave and handsome and cool.
Yeah. Ideally, this is the thing. Ideally, I would say that the next Bond should be black, but I think we missed the opportunity to make Idris Elba Bond because I think he's too old now. And the only other of the right age who's like British popular black actor is John Boyega, and this isn't a knock on John Boyega. I just don't think he could do Bond. And that's nothing to do with like whatever bullshit you want to talk about race. I just think he's a very good actor in a very specific role. I just don't think he's got the Bond, whatever it is. There's a little something you need for that character. I just don't think he's got it.
I don't. My ideal trajectory for Bond is, look, we can all admit there's 25 Bond movies and they're all exactly the same movie. Arguably apart from GoldenEye and Casino Royale. But if you're going to do Bond, like, Bond can't keep up with the present time for various reasons. Like, he is... Bond exists because it's a very specific masculine fantasy.
Yeah.
Of a super cool, handsome guy who travels to interesting places, fucks beautiful women, has fun gadgets, and kills the bad guy. Right? Which, feels like it should be slottable everywhere, but it also isn't. And I feel like any attempt to dilute that kind of invalidates the completely valid fantasy of what it is. So for me, I think that Bond should always be set in the 60s.
So this is
because it means that the gadgets then, and you don't even have to be funny about it, like you don't even have to be parody about it, but just like, here's the gadgets, here's a gun, here's a cigarette that shoots poison darts, here's a pen that's also a grenade, like, because that's the core of Bond. And I feel like if we just did that and just kept him in the 1960s and made it essentially a period piece, it would fix a lot. The problem with that is that pretty much precludes a non-white Bond.
So here is my theory, and this is, so I've genuinely believed for quite a while now. There's no law that says that they can't, like, that the Bond franchise has to. What I'm saying is, if you're listening to this, the Broccoli family, there's no rule that says you can only make one Bond film at once.
Yeah.
So what you should do is make a direct sequel to No Time to Die, in which Bond is dead and that team of, like, Moneypenny, the new 007 agent that they brought in, that Ben Wheatley as Q, Ralph Fiennes as M, do that and continue telling those stories, like modern day Bond style stuff, all of the trappings, and at the same time do a period piece in which John Hamm is James Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, set in the 1960s and 70s. And what you could do is you can make a very tongue-in-cheek misogynistic stuff about where he goes, oh, it says something, and we as the audience are all like, oh, that's not acceptable to say, Bond. And equally, dads will be like, yeah, that's right. Right? So you can thoroughly have your cake and eat it with the Bond character. If you announce tomorrow your next movie was those two films would be coming out the same year, I would go see both of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Then you get to have Bond and your cinematic universe.
Yeah, and the old Bond ones get to be like, you get to put him in. You can do stuff like you get to put him in the DB5 again, like the Goldfinger car that's got an ejector seat. You can have that back. That's what I'd do. But I'm not in charge of James Bond, despite the letters I have written. But yeah, great episode of Star Trek.
Great ep. Yep.
Great episode. Yeah. Go watch this one.
Go watch it.
It's
fantastic.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They didn't mention it. The Enterprise C crew have got the old movie era fucking uniforms. I fucking love them.
Yeah,
love
that
them.
was cool.
Love them to bits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, well, bye.
Bye.